Welcome to episode 4 of Faint Praise. I'm Toni.
I'm Eric.
And this is a podcast where we compare movies with similar themes by scoring them in a few different categories in order to decide which one did it better. And this week, I decided to go back to the year 2012.
Way back when.
Yeah, where inexplicably there were 2 different Snow White movies that came out after how many decades of having no Snow White
Well, that's
movies?
what I was going to ask you about, because we were just talking about the Kristen Kroik one. That wasn't that long before that, was it?
Oh, I forgot to look that one up. Was that
I think it was like a Hallmark channel or something.
I don't know.
No, there was one called like Wicked or something, wasn't there? And it had like an apple. What was that one? That was Snow White, but that was more recent.
There is a show called Once Upon a Time, I think.
And one of the seasons was like Snow White?
Well, I think all of the seasons are just a bunch of different fairy tales.
There is some movie or show called Wicked that I think is related to Snow White.
No, Wicked is related to The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, and it was a witch thing?
It's a retelling of The Wizard of Oz from the point of view of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, anyways.
So
for some reason in 2012 they had 2 Snow White movies.
Yeah, the first one was, the cartoon was like 1937 or something.
And they waited that many years to do 2 movies at once.
Yep. So I decided, hey, why don't we watch those and figure out which one did it better?
And I was like, no.
Yeah. No, Eric's a good sport. He figured he probably wasn't going to like either of these. So normally we do like a synopsis of each movie before them, but I mean, I'm just going to give a general overview.
Yeah, because most of these, they are different. They do a lot of things. They try to be unique, but they generally follow the idea.
Right. I mean, most of us know the Snow White fairy tale if you grew up in the States and if you weren't in some weird cult that was anti-fairy tale or something. So the general elements of the Snow White fairy tale are there's a queen who wishes for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood.
Is that a significant part of the story?
Well, that's why she has the white skin, the red lips, and the black hair.
She's got her wish?
Yes. I don't know why she got her wish.
I don't
Whatever.
know, it's suspect.
It's probably
Maybe
different.
she invited the black magic in by doing some weird...
Yeah, she asked for it.
Right.
Anyway, so the queen gives birth to this little white baby with black hair and red lips.
A little privileged baby.
Yeah, at some point the queen dies and the king remarries. Unfortunately, she happens to be wicked and vain and is obsessed with being the most beautiful woman in all the land. So then in most versions of the fairy tale, I believe the king dies at some point. The queen, in addition to being wicked, is also magical, has a magic mirror.
Some kind of sorcerer.
Yeah, has a magic mirror that she checks in with every once in a while and asks it, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
It's part of her morning routine,
yes.
Right after exfoliating.
Right, sure. And
you don't ask before exfoliating, because then it might not be
yeah, you don't want to ask with that morning breath either. Like you gotta get your shit together before going to the mirror for the day. So as long as the mirror answers that
just
she's
like
the fairest,
check your weight in the morning, you know.
Yep. So as long as the mirror tells her she's the fairest, she's happy. But then one day it inevitably tells her that Snow White is the fairest, and then she gets pissed. She usually hires a huntsman to go kill Snow White. For whatever reason, decides he can't. He pretends
because she's so cute. She's now the fairest of them all.
She's just so
of
purty.
Of course, he would decide not to.
She's just so purty. So he takes her into the woods, tells her to run away. He tells the queen he killed her. Then Snow White somehow falls in with a band of 7 dwarves. They take care of her. The queen finds out she's alive, finds her, gives her a poison apple. Snow White falls deep asleep, and then Prince Charming has to come by and kiss her to wake her up.
Non-consensually kiss her.
And then somehow it's very problematic.
It's written in 1937, you know.
Yeah. The queen always dies at the end. I don't know if there's a set way that she dies, but yes, those are the general elements. Each movie takes some of those elements, most of them, and adds some more, and we'll talk about that with each movie.
Takes away some of it, too.
Yeah. So we did watch both of these in the same day, and we chose which one we thought would be the worst to watch first. It was kind of tough with this one, though, because they were both 49% exactly on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
So we couldn't necessarily go with critics' reviews. We went with watching Mirror, Mirror first because
I don't know, it just seemed like it would be weaker.
Yeah, it seemed weirder.
It's one I'd heard less about.
Well, I figured Snow White and the Huntsman had a sequel, so that
couldn't
at
have done
least
too badly at the box
one
office.
at least did well enough.
And I don't even know anyone who's seen Mirror, Mirror.
I know. I never heard of a single person who saw it.
But I do think part of that was related to, it's like PG. It's like a kid's. Which
so what we didn't realize, we ended up watching Mirror, Mirror first. Right off the bat, well, not right off the bat, it sort of slowly
30 minutes
dawned on us. This is a children's movie.
I was like, this movie's definitely like PG. Check it.
I did not expect that this was going to be a children's movie. It's PG, and it's like it's trying to be. It's funny and lighthearted.
Well, they were going out of their way to, and I'll get into this later, and even like the casting choices. But they went out of their way to make it like not at all scary.
Yes.
To make it like kind of whimsical more than even spooky.
Yes.
Like the witch is more like mean and bitchy than she is evil.
Right.
She's just like rude and like selfish, but not really evil.
Yes. So that really took me off guard and kind of threw me for a loop. And I have to be honest, if I'd have known it was
I wouldn't have bothered
so
with a
geared
PG
toward children,
movie.
I would not.
Because of course we're not going to enjoy it. It's like a kids movie.
I don't like reviewing movies that really have no chance of me liking them. But I mean, whatever. I'd already committed, and it falls right into the category of why I made this podcast, basically. So we went through with it, especially since we didn't really realize it immediately.
Yeah, it took probably 20 minutes.
Also, weird choice for director for this movie. I don't think Eric knows much about Tarsem Singh, but if you're listening to a movie podcast, you probably are pretty familiar with Tarsem Singh. I
didn't know him by name.
He typically... Okay, the two Tarsem Singh movies I'd seen before were The Cell and Immortals.
And I've seen Immortals, but not The Cell.
Yeah, The Cell is a serial killer movie.
Right.
Like a
and Immortals
freaky
is solid
atmospheric...
R, where they're like boiling people in metal oxens and stuff like that, and chopping people to pieces.
Right, and he also, looking him up, you know what else he did? The REM music video, Losing My Religion, which freaked me out as a child.
Really?
Yes. It didn't give me nightmares or anything, but I found it creepy and scary and
maybe he had
unsettling.
scared children on his ledger and he wanted to even the score.
Yeah, I guess so. So he's an odd choice for a children's movie, and I would say he struggled. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, it's almost like someone else came in and was like, lighten this up, lighten that, and like you know what I mean? Because it seemed like I could tell he was he had some visuals that he wanted to make like kind of spooky, and then they would add like weird whimsical music or some element to like really soften it a lot.
Right, and I thought when they initially showed the dwarves on like stilts, I thought that could have been a little bit of a weird visual.
It was like kind of creepy.
Yeah, like unsettling is the word I keep coming back to.
But then I'm saying like the music then was like, and they would add like goofy, almost like, not quite like Three Stooges stuff, but like little blunders and bloops and people getting bopped on the head and stuff like that, as opposed to like...
Right, so let's get into our ratings. The way that the ratings work is we have 3 different categories: acting, visuals, and structure. And in each category, each one of us will give anywhere from 0 to 5 points. And at the end, the movie that gets the most points between the two of us is considered the better movie.
They win a prize.
Yeah. So let's get into the ratings. How did you feel about the acting? What did you give it?
I gave it, like, because you also made clear last time, because I kept forgetting, that you wanted to include casting.
Yes.
So I put it pretty low overall. I gave it 1.5 because I thought the casting was very awkward.
You gave them a 0.5?
1.5.
Okay.
1.5.
Yeah.
Because acting in and of itself was okay. Hard to tell with PG-related material if it's just goofy because it's so goofy, or if it could have been done better by other people, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of chemistry between the people. I thought Julia Roberts was a terrible choice.
She was...
And I think that goes back to what I was saying, is that was I think it was a conscious decision on their part to pick someone who isn't at all spooky or scary, and is just sort of like kind of schoolmarmish version of the evil queen instead of like an evil one.
Yes. So I pretty much agree with you. I gave it a little higher than you did. I gave it a 2. So you said when you said 0.5, I was like, whoa, that's really...
because I mean, like, the straight up acting was okay.
Most of them aren't horrible, but I gave it a 2 for a lot of the same reasons Eric is saying. First of all, Julia Roberts absolutely was completely miscast.
And she was basically the main character almost in this movie. I understand
what they were trying to do with that character, and even with what they were trying to do with her, she still was the wrong person.
Choice. I see why, but she still was the wrong choice. I actually
realized, let me see if you agree with me. Given what they were trying to do with this character, where she was just like this snarky, bitchy, salty, older lady who's having difficulty dealing with the fact that she's getting older and just hates on the younger ladies, and in general is just mean to people. And she's supposed to be funny. Julia Roberts herself is not, in this at least. I thought...
We're going to say like Tina Fey or something?
Close.
Yeah.
Close. Jane Kowalski, who
right. The mom from, I mean, not the mom, but the rich mom from...
Yes. Kimmy Schmidt's rich mom friend.
Yeah,
I thought
that would have been a better choice.
For what they were trying to do with this character, it basically was that
She's
character.
a better version of that character.
And it would have been, she's better looking, too.
And it would have been, she's better looking. It would have been, she is that character. Just a little bit, like, less murderous, but, you know what I mean? But being all mean and selfish about, like, her, and all about her looks and all that stuff.
And she actually does it in a funny way. So they slipped up there. They chose the wrong actress. That was, and Eric's right. She's basically the main character, so that definitely took points off. Lily Collins was Snow White, and she's, God love her, she's just bad. She's just one of those.
She's just kind of like a blank slate. I can't tell
she's
yet
not horrible.
if she's not going to be good at anything, or if she just hasn't been good for the roles that we've seen her in. She was almost a nothing role in Priest. So it's hard to say there. This one, I think she was definitely miscast, but I don't know if that's the only problem, because she's not a bad actress. But she wasn't good.
She strikes me as lacking in talent. She's passable. She's not upsetting when she's on screen, but to have her
it's not like you can see her like reading off cue cards or something. But
No. She can pronounce the words.
Right.
But I can't imagine something that she would be really good in, but maybe that's just me being unfair.
Right. At least she's attractive. Didn't pick someone fugly.
I have to say, maybe you'll disagree with me. I thought Armie Hammer was good. I enjoyed him.
He was fine. A lot of the stuff for that character was terrible. He had to go way over the top with goofiness.
He was trying really hard,
really
though.
was.
He was trying so hard, and I did feel bad for him.
Yeah. Because this was probably before he'd got some of those bigger roles, too, wasn't it?
Yes.
So this was him probably.
I don't know that he's still that well known. I mean, look at his...
No, but he's had a couple like starring roles.
Yeah, but one of them's Lone Ranger. He's not.
No.
I'm sure he wishes he didn't star in that one.
Yeah.
And then The Man from U.N.C.L.E. wasn't all that popular.
That's true.
Liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. But it's not like it got a lot of.
Yeah, he was in The Social Network,
he's
but
not
like one of the
A-lister.
Main guys. Yeah. I thought he was good though. He was trying so hard. I felt really bad for him.
He was just too gigantic.
He was
because she's
big.
tiny.
He was
they
so
was literally
big.
like they were like sword fighting one part because she's with the and this is actually a similar theme for both these movies. That the dwarves in both movies are bandits versus versus workers.
I have a
which
list.
is really bizarre that they specifically.
I have a list that I'm going to say. Actually, I guess I'll go ahead and say it now. But there are some very specific things these movies do that is a departure from the initial fairy tale that they do. First of all, like Eric said, in both of these movies, the seven dwarves, they were bandits. They were bad guys.
Like swarthy,
They were thieving rogues who were dangerous. And in the original fairy tale, as far as I know, they're
basically they're minors.
Yeah. So that was a weird thing that they did. Actually, but this is all structure stuff. So
we can wait, because I was originally talking about how he was so gigantic, and in the sword fight scene,
and that's visual stuff. So let me get through the rest of my let me get through the rest of my acting. I only have a couple more that I want to talk about. So Nathan Lane,
I thought he was fine in the role.
That's
one of his
that's
character
the role
types.
he was born to play. He was sort of a bumbling manservant type.
Which he also plays in like Beauty and the Beast, doesn't he? Or like
Cogsworth or something. The seven dwarves were barely even actors.
Right.
They were part of the reason I had to give it a 2.
Right,
also.
because I mean, like they weren't terrible, but they just had to get real dwarves, so they were like, and not all of them were great.
Yeah, one of them acted stoned. It was really odd. They were likable.
There was like
enough.
2 or 3 of them that we've seen in many movies, and they were fine. There wasn't much there to work with as far as material, so they're not going to be able to stand out.
Yeah, and then the last one I wanted to mention was Sean Bean shows up at the very end.
Yeah, I was like, what a waste!
As her father,
and
who
he literally
ends up
stands there.
as her father, who ends up not being dead, like you're supposed to think he is throughout the entire movie. He showed up in a different movie than the rest of. He shows up.
Tony, I was like, I think they told him this is another episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he was super serious. He's like, he's getting emotional about everything. The rest of the movie is like, the silly music while people are falling over.
Because it was like totally unnecessary. Could have been literally anyone.
Yeah,
he didn't have to do almost any lines. He literally stood there in 2 different scenes. And that's about it.
Right. It could have practically been Nathan Lane in a beard. And and it would have been fine. It would have been okay.
Could have been one
fine.
of the other guys that were already in the movie in the dance scenes, and just no one would have cared or known.
Yeah, so that was an interesting choice.
Maybe he had like a studio kind of like contract. Like you have to be in so many movies. He
probably just had a free weekend on his calendar and said, "How much are you going to pay me?" Sure.
For how long? Okay.
Yeah, I still.
But I'm just wondering why they would even bother trying to get someone like him for that role.
True.
Maybe you never know with movies like this. Sometimes 30 minutes of it's cut out. Maybe there's beginning scenes with him in it to show how they were growing up, and they cut all that out. Who knows?
Right. All right, so moving on to our next category, which is visuals. Tell me what you thought about that.
I gave it another low one, 1.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think like you said, they have good-looking actors and actresses, but the only thing that was really strong, I thought, was because I mentioned this during the movie, was that the costumes were like really elaborate and well done.
That's
but the whole
staple
movie
of Tarsem Singh's.
Is it? He does really elaborate costumes?
He does really elaborate everything.
But the movie was set up like they were purposely trying to make it look like a play.
Yeah.
The whole thing felt...
I didn't like...
The whole movie felt small to me.
Yeah.
Like, not only in, like, physical restraint. Like, it seemed like anytime you would show them going somewhere, like, oh, they're at the town, it felt like they just opened the back door and walked right out into the town.
Yeah, that was purposeful.
And, like, the timeline seemed, like, all scrunched up and weird.
Right.
And... there were a lot of visuals that I, like you said, like some of those pseudo creepy, but kind of like just unrelated and just disjointed.
He was the wrong person for this movie because whenever anybody talks about a Tarsem Singh movie, the first thing they talk about are the visuals. He is known for what I would call being elegantly unsettling. So The Cell is a serial killer movie where she like goes into his mind. So he can do things that are
like Freddy Krueger kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more atmospheric. It's not really about what's even happening. It's just about the different weird things that you're seeing inside the serial killer's mind. So that's what Tarsem Singh is known for. You take a guy like that who can make something unhappy look beautiful, and then you put him in front of a kid's movie, and it was,
And well, I mean, that's part of it. It's not that any one of those visuals was necessarily bad, but they didn't work for the movie. And there were a couple that were bad. Like, the dragon thing looked like shit.
Bad.
The whole, like, world she would go to in the mirror, she, like, walks into the mirror in this one instead of talks to it. It looked like shit. It looked like something that when you're like, hey, I took a computer design class. This is what I made over the weekend. That's what that looked like to me.
Yeah. So, I agree with you, but I actually gave it a 3 because it didn't bother me. I kind of appreciated what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy the cool costumes and the pretty dresses.
Yeah.
And one guy was at this ball in a costume that was like a walrus.
There was like an animal costume.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that was the good part of it.
I kind of gave it style points, I would say. But I will say, for a Tarsem Singh movie, I was underwhelmed. It wasn't as much as I was expecting. And I'm sure it was because he had to hold back. And a big issue with it is, I'm sorry to say it, but Julia Roberts just is not beautiful enough to be the most beautiful woman in all the land.
Right.
So she is obviously an attractive woman. I would be lucky to look like her at any point in my life. But
it's not something realistic that at any point that she'd be like the most beautiful woman.
Yeah. There are going to be a couple that are better looking than her.
Right.
So it really should have been somebody else. I very much enjoyed looking at Armie Hammer. I'm not going to complain about that. He's a big, cute oaf, and he had his shirt off for about half the movie. It was a running joke that the bandits kept like taking his clothes
shirt
off.
And she didn't want him to put it back on.
So I'm not going to complain about that. Maybe that's why I gave it extra points too. But Eric is completely right about it. It purposefully was made to feel like you were in the theater, like you were watching it on stage.
That's not necessarily that it was. Yeah, that affects my
I don't know why they did
it.
that. They really shouldn't have done that. It served no purpose.
There was no reason
it
for
added
that.
nothing to this movie. And
it took a lot away, I think.
The movie had enough problems as is that when you're trying to do these spectacular visuals like he wanted to do,
and you cramp them into a soundstage or something.
Why would you hamstring yourself by trying to make it look like it was at a theater? So that was very odd. But anyway, I still gave it a 3. You gave it a 1.5. I guess it just... I noticed all the things you said, but it didn't bother me as much.
Right.
And I kind of felt like a little girl could watch this and enjoy the costumes and enjoy the pretty people and stuff like that.
Sure.
And that was really
but I'm not
kind
a
of
little girl.
yeah. I could imagine myself as maybe like a 10-year-old watching this movie, this completely innocuous movie, being like, "Oh, I like her dress. Oh, that's a cool headdress. Yay." So this is my attempt to adjust the points for maybe a movie that is not aimed at me.
And I think I did that because that was another thing, is I was trying to keep this in the right zone for how much I like this movie, and I couldn't, like, I already put it low in the other categories.
Yeah.
So I had to take them from somewhere.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm not arguing with you. It just didn't bother me as much.
Better not be arguing.
I should know better. No, I will say I went into this particular episode actually expecting to give higher points than Eric. Probably in both of these movies. I think I am more the target audience than Eric is. I think neither of us is, but I at least at one point in my life was, and you never were.
Interesting.
So I kind of figured I'd be giving it better points, and I could tell you fucking hated it while we were watching it.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I didn't feel as hateful about
going into the last category.
Yeah, structure.
I will admit that it is incredibly difficult for me to watch a legitimate G or PG movie.
Yeah.
A lot of even PG-13 movies.
Yeah.
But like I struggle to sit through, and like that really affected my score, because like a lot of that, it's not even, I don't even want to necessarily say that it's like a negative if that's what you're going for. Like kids need movies too. Yeah. But like for me, I literally am like, like I'd rather be like working out or doing any number like chores or anything. Like it's just hard for me to sit through.
Yeah,
so that really affects my like ability to.
I felt bad for you once I realized it was a PG movie. I was just like,
I always joke that I need some gratuitous sex and or violence in my movie, but I'm not really joking.
Yeah, it's a joke based on a true
story. The joke is that it doesn't have to be gratuitous. Yeah. It can be part of the story. But
there must be violence and some nudity,
or at least a lot of profanity or something.
Right, or at least cleavage.
Now the good thing I will say is that a lot of movies that are that, I think this is more for PG-13 than legitimate PG, so that's why I don't come across it too often. But a lot of PG-13 movies, you can tell that the situations really do need some violence or language to be realistic, and so it feels hamstrung. Yeah. This movie didn't really feel like that because it was so oriented towards children.
Yeah, so
that it felt like that's just what it was supposed to be.
As the movie went on, when the movie first started and I realized what we'd gotten into and how horribly misjudged how horribly I had misjudged this movie, I was kind of, I was in shock a little bit for the first half hour of this movie, going,
because I would say this wasn't even like a family movie. This is one that you like put on for your kids while you're going off and doing something.
Yes, this is a kids movie.
Right,
there is not much here for adults except for Army Hammer shirtless.
Right.
That's maybe for grandma who's like babysitting.
Who's like sitting in the corner. It's like,
again? Oh. So I would say after about an hour, I kind of was like, I came to terms with what was happening, and I readjusted my expectations, and I actually kind of came around to it after about an hour. I caught
myself like checking Twitter and stuff.
I came around to it a little bit. I was like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was.
My score represents my feelings of it. Like it was not a bad movie. I was actually impressed with stuff like the costumes and basically just how the movie was made, but like in terms of how I liked it, this is not what I was
So what is your actual structure score?
I give it a 1.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because like I said, a huge chunk of that though is related to the fact that like this is just not what I'm into. Yeah. And so everything about it, even though it was done on purpose and probably maybe necessarily done that way to get the result that they wanted, is just not what I'm into. And there were a lot of stuff that it just didn't really make sense and stuff like that.
And I said wow with the 1. I gave it a 2, so it's not
and
like
also structure includes, like I said, everything not related to the other. It includes the plot, which is fairly straightforward, but it also includes like I said, the lack of anything dramatic, all the other decisions they do with the story and the structure.
For this one, when judging a kids movie, I tried to not be such a stickler about characterization and motivation.
Weird things.
Yeah, like Eric said, continuity. There was a point where when Snow White first meets the dwarves, she's completely useless, and they take it upon themselves to teach her to fight,
to be like a bandit, and then like literally it's like a day later,
literally the same day.
I mean, I don't think it's supposed to be. They just fucked it up, or maybe it is, and that's just ridiculous.
I think it was supposed to be, because before she meets the dwarves, they show Armie Hammer talking to the Queen
and he's like,
about how he's going to go out and find her.
Right. So I mean, theoretically,
then she meets the dwarves, has a montage, a literal
like a training montage of like cutting her hair, finding the right bandit outfit, and everything. And I'm sitting there like,
like falling over while trying to do things, and then progressively getting better. And then it shows Armie Hammer finding her. and the dwarves pantsing him again like they did every time they find him. And when he goes back to the queen makes fun of him.
Well, they shirtsed him. They shirtsed him.
Yeah. Well, he comes in like he's got like long
like
johns,
knickers on under, or bloomers or whatever.
Yeah, bloomers probably is what they are. But the queen's making fun of him because she's like, you just left this morning,
again, right.
yeah, and here you are. So it's weird stuff like that I'm kind of like, okay, it's a kid's movie. They're trying to keep their attention, whatever. But I will say the reason I gave it a 2 is because it wasn't funny enough.
No.
They were trying to make it funny.
They failed at what they were
trying
doing.
to make this a slapstick comedy, and putting myself in the shoes of a small child, I was like, this is going to be boring.
I would not have
for
thought
a lot
that
of
was
kids.
funny. Yeah.
It wouldn't be very funny. They kind of needed to go more.
And even the only parts that were chuckle-worthy were the stuff that, as a 6-year-old or something like that, it may have gone over your head. Like the queen wanting him to keep his shirt off. There's a little subtlety in the way she would say it or something, and then I'd be like, okay, that's funny. But like that, you might not even pick up on that as a kid.
Yeah, I will say there were a couple Army Hammer lines that I liked, and they were kind of all toward the end. He said he's locked in the dwarves' house and he's trying to get out, so he's like banging against the door and throwing his weight against it, and at the end he turns around and says, I must compliment you on your carpentry. And I was even thinking that, I was like, Jesus, this is a giant of a man to them, and how is this door not falling over?
So like they realized
for him to turn around and do that. And there were a couple of little tongue-in-cheek things that he did like that.
Like I said, for a little kid, they're not going to be like, oh, that's hilarious. And it wasn't quite goofy enough that kids would think that was funny.
Right.
So.
I was kind of wondering how it could have been more interesting. I was like, should it be a musical? Because
it felt like it wanted to be.
Feeling like a stage production.
Right.
I kept wanting it to be a musical, which is what I get to my last point in my structure score, which is that it has a Bollywood dance at the end.
And all of a sudden I was like, is this some Bollywood dance? I didn't know the guy was like Indian.
I knew the guy was Indian, but he hasn't done that in the other movies that he's done.
They're not the type of movies. Like Immortals isn't going to have a Bollywood dance.
So you're watching this, weirdly put together children's movie, and then they just all start dancing and singing.
Which is what felt like it was going to happen the entire movie.
And I have to say, I was like, this should have been the whole movie.
Right, the movie would have been a lot more of like what it wanted to be.
Yeah, my initial reaction was, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, what is happening?
But then after I got over that, I went, no, not what the fuck. What the fuck? Why didn't they do this the whole time?
Yeah,
this should have been a musical.
It should have been a musical, right?
Yeah, if it wasn't going to be funnier, it should have had something to
catchy
keep children.
songs or something.
So all in all, I have to say, I didn't totally hate it, but it's tough for me to tell. Maybe it was a good...
That's what I was saying. Like, it's tough. It's hard for me to
maybe
judge
it was a good
that
movie.
Appropriately.
So I'm going to go
like
back...
someone who doesn't like cake judging a cake.
Yeah.
And like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this tastes like shit. And like, well, to you, but it may actually taste really good.
Well,
to people
it didn't make me throw up, so I guess it was a fine cake.
There are, like we said, there are elements that you can tell were done poorly, regardless of if you like the movie or not.
Yes.
But
so
it wouldn't have got that low of a score for someone who actually watches these type of movies.
So before we move on to Snow White and the Huntsman, I'll give my little list of weird specific things that both of these movies did, since it basically is structure. I'd started to talk about it and then I wanted to skip it. So first of all, it made the dwarves bandits. Kind of bizarre. I don't know why it didn't just keep them regular
Especially
working.
both the movies.
Yeah,
like, that's
both
random.
movies making them bandits. Why? That doesn't make any sense. At one point during both of these movies, the main man in Mirror Mirror, It's the Prince, in Snow White and the Huntsman, It's the Huntsman, gets kicked by a fucking horse.
Right, like in the back.
Yeah, during a fight scene, which is pretty specific.
And
they don't usually put that in movies because I think anyone who spent any time around horses knows...
you would die.
Yeah, well, that's the end of that fight.
Spine is crushed.
Right. Then also, each movie, the main man, again, Mirror Mirror, It's the Prince... Snow White and the Huntsman, It's the Huntsman, gets hung upside down with somebody else by the dwarves.
Right.
So I was just like, what
These are some weird similarities.
What the hell is going on? This one is a little more understandable given the year that this happened, being a modern movie. Both of them were pretty strongly like girl power movies.
That's not as surprising because that's in a lot of movies.
They both tried to make Snow White a very capable fighter and tried to turn the fairy tale on its head, but that one
like in the first one they made it that she has to kiss the guy to snap him out of a spell,
right?
Ooh, you know what I mean?
But, yeah. And then in Snow White and the Huntsman, they made her lead a war, which was
be like Joan of Arc, kind of.
Yeah, which was ridiculous. So I'll use that as my segue to start talking about Snow White and the Huntsman.
Okay.
Also the year 2012. Also a 49%.
All the Snow White you could handle.
Yeah, that was... man, I don't know anyone who saw either of these, actually. But,
you do now.
Yeah, I am the one. This one kept most of the elements of the fairy tale. The Mirror Mirror actually didn't have a huntsman at all. This one, the huntsman's, even more
her
of a
manservant was pretended. They had that role, but it wasn't fulfilled by a separate person. He just took her out to the woods and let her go and then brought back organs.
True. This one obviously makes the huntsman even more of a main character than the prince. Right. And it actually, the king is dead. It does not bring him back.
Right.
They
show him get stabbed and everything.
Its big twist on it is that Snow White becomes a battled princess.
And then the prince kissing her doesn't wake her up. The huntsman kiss does. Or maybe cumulative kissing wakes her up. Yeah. There's no way for you to know.
Is it kiss points? Is it...
Right. Like if the guy had kissed her again, would that have worked? Or did it have to be separate people?
Do we need to get all the dwarves
Did she need like a kiss bang to get woken up?
Yeah, so that was their spin on it. But how did you feel about acting for this one?
I gave it 2 on this one again because I thought there was some weird casting decisions.
Which one did you think was?
Well, I don't like Kristen Stewart being like. I mean, she's just kind of wooden to me in everything she does.
Yeah.
And the idea that she's better looking than Charlize Theron's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, that's preposterous.
Right? Because I always make the joke about how she's not hot. I give her a really hard time, honestly. And to be honest, the example I always use is if you were going through like a drive-through and she was there, you'd be like, "Oh, check out the cute chick in the drive-through." But in like movie theater land or movie land, she's not that hot. Especially when she's supposed to be like way hotter than.
I don't want to sound mean, but I have friends who are hotter than Kristen Stewart.
Wait, who? Have I met them?
I'll introduce you to them.
All right.
No, so she's obviously a good-looking girl, but she's not the prettiest girl.
In the same way, like Julia Roberts would never be the hottest person ever. She's not going to be either.
Yeah, so I gave this one a 3 because a 3 to me is kind of, it averages out to be not noticeable.
Yeah.
If I was watching this movie without taking notes for a podcast, I wouldn't have really thought about the acting.
It wasn't way low. I didn't think there was a lot of chemistry between. I thought she was a bad choice. I didn't think there was very much good chemistry.
Yeah, that's
between her and either of the main dudes.
That's a problem with her though. In general,
yeah, she's kind of wooden.
She just kind of doesn't have. She's not bad on her own.
Right.
Yeah, she is.
She's fine playing like weird stoners, like in Adventureland or the American Ultra.
Yeah,
that's the type of character she needs to play.
She was fine in American Ultra.
Yeah, but that's the type of character she needs to play.
Yes, this character did not work for her. Eric's right. She had no chemistry with either of the men that were supposed to be her love interests. I thought Charlize Theron was good. I liked her. I think that she did a good job at the beginning when they were trying to make her a sympathetic character. I thought as she got angrier, it got hammier and it got a little more annoying.
Right.
But I mean, this is not a subtle story, so it was fine that she was being pretty hammy. Chris Hemsworth was fine. He did exactly what he needed to do, as did everyone else. In this one,
I still think I think he was an interesting choice for that, though. I think they're just like, who's famous right now? We'll throw him in there. I don't think he would have been the best person for that one.
Yeah, I have to admit, this is a weird thing for me to say, but I kind of wanted the Huntsman to be older.
I was just gonna say they needed, especially with the character that they envisioned, like this drunken, and they made him Scottish. Who he's not Scottish.
That
first
was
of all,
a terrible
get like
choice.
Gerard Butler if you want an old like drunk Scottish guy. He would have been a better choice.
Yeah, Gerard. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean? Gerard Butler would have been a better choice for this.
Liam Neeson or something.
Yeah, I didn't like.
It may be too
as
old.
Eric already alluded to. They ended the movie kind of trying to make him a love interest by being the one who wakes her up by kissing her, implying that he's her true love.
Right.
At no point in the movie were you really like,
they were almost like adversarial for much of the movie.
I would have liked if they'd have tried to make it more of a father-daughter relationship. Right. So
like
if he was
mentor
older,
or something.
Yeah, because he was already her mentor.
And then she went off to be like this big warrior. So like, why that would have been a better relationship.
Yeah, I think that's more of a characterization issue.
But I'm saying, given that characterization, he was the wrong choice.
Yes.
If it was like, who's the prince guy? He would have been fine for that.
Well, given the fact that this movie wanted him to be a love interest, he had to be younger. I'm just saying, I think that they did the characters wrong. So I'm not taking away from his acting or the casting of him. I'm going to take that away down in the structure section. Yeah. And everyone else was fine. The dwarves were actual, like, real actors this time.
Well, they weren't actual dwarves. They were like, they did the whole Lord of the Rings thing because
Yes.
they had like Ray Winston and they had what's the other guy's name?
Ian McShane.
Yeah, and they all like dwarfed them.
And Nick Frost.
And Nick Frost, yeah, who's still a good actor.
That was a random choice.
Totally
I guess
random.
he's trying to break into
This whole
serious
movie
roles.
felt randomly casted to me.
I thought Charlize Theron was the perfect choice.
She was
honestly.
a good choice for that. But I mean, like, more so in relation to each other than in relation to their role.
Yes.
Like, for any given role, I can say, okay, I can see why you got, except for maybe the Snow White role.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Except I think Charlize Theron was the only one who stood out as being really the perfect choice
for that one.
And everyone else was passable and did a decent job, and that's why I gave it a 3. Yours was 2?
2.
Okay. How did you feel about the visuals?
I gave it a 1.5.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of stupid, like, Bambi Twitterpation in the woods. It really bothered me.
That came out
and
of
terrible
nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. Terrible grab. I didn't even like the fire swamp thing that they go into. I thought that was stupid, too. Because it was so random. They didn't build the world very well.
Yes.
But I mean, like, that could be structured more, but like it came across in visuals. Like, it just was, everything was random. You didn't know what was happening and why it looked that way.
Yeah.
The things that they did do well is they did have honestly decent, like, I don't want to say the fight scenes were decent, but like they were like not bad as far as like real, like the guys were really armor and all this stuff. Like that stuff looked good.
Yes. I struggled with this one a lot. I ended up giving it a 2.5.
Cool. He's got to count for the extra point for Chris Helms. I was wondering about this because he's all like dirty and he doesn't look good in this movie.
Actually, I wasn't as excited about him.
Yeah, because he looks like shit the whole movie.
Yeah,
and
so
he's always like puffy and weird looking too.
This is the
drunk.
first official time on this podcast we're talking about Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, yeah.
We did a test episode that maybe I'll release one day.
Well,
where I had a legitimate Hemsworth quotient where I was
she
like,
made a big point of saying like visuals also includes the attractiveness of the actors. And I'm like, oh, what are we getting into here?
Yeah.
So of course Chris Hemsworth adds like a full point for his 4 minutes in Ghostbusters.
I couldn't do a full point for him for this one.
We didn't deserve it here because I
almost wanted to do just the quarter point, but I'm cutting myself off at half points. So I will say I did give an extra half point
just for
in
him.
honor of having the best Hemsworth you can get. But
the best Hemsworth money can buy.
I was overly bothered by him having dark hair. I don't mind
and
dark
the Scottish
hair.
accent.
I don't
was
mind
weird.
dark hair, by the way.
Yeah.
But on him, it makes him look plainer.
And it makes him look greasier too.
It did.
Like
He was very dirty, and he did look kind of bloated.
He was supposed to be a drunk, but that's what I'm saying. Like they were going for like this older kind of feeling character.
Yes.
Like they didn't need it to be him.
Yeah, so with the dark hair and the dirtiness and the shitty Scottish accent.
The puffiness.
Yeah, the puffiness. He wasn't. I was honestly more attracted to Armie Hammer today than I was to Chris Hemsworth.
Goodness, I won't let him know.
Yeah. Please don't tell him. You're still my favorite, Chris, but Mr. Hemsworth. But I still, in honor of him...
You still gave him a little bit extra.
Yeah, in honor of him being on screen, I was like, okay, good. The rest of the movie was fairly underwhelming as far as what it was looking at. It was really overly dramatic. Like, dripping black. That's dripping gold.
And like everything explodes into butterflies into the...
It was meant to be seen in 3D, so everything comes rushing at you on the screen.
Like a shattering evil like demon soldier just explodes into glass shard. Like, that's why I didn't like it.
And she turns into ravens, and they come at you at the screen, and it was trying.
And she goes and stands in the fire for no reason, and just
it was trying so hard. So they weren't necessarily bad visuals
in the sense that they weren't poorly done.
They were kind of groan-worthy visuals. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. I really didn't like what they did with the mirror man. So I was fine with the fact that the mirror that they used in this one was not a standard mirror.
It was
a polished gold, gong, for lack of a better word, which I didn't really care about that. But every time she talked to it, the gold would come dripping off of the mirror, and then it would rise up into the form of like a cloaked man.
Yeah, and speak to her.
And I thought that was very stupid.
It was stupid.
If they were going to have the mirror drip into a form, what I thought they were going to do, and what I think would have been at least a little more creative, is if it dripped into the form of the fairest one. Like if she asked, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of it all? And instead of speaking, it just silently made a sculpture in gold of who it is. And every morning it does this, and then one day she's expecting to see herself, but instead it makes a sculpture of Snow White. That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, but the mirror didn't only do that.
I know.
Like she could talk to it about other stuff.
I know, but I think that would have been cool. But when it started dripping, I was like, oh, is it gonna make a sculpture of her? And then it made this stupid robed character that told her everything she needed to do and whatever. Eric is right. The horrible forest scenes with the stag with the branches,
and they're they're saying all this he stuff, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't even explain it. And these weird little like nymphs, crawling around, these little like mutant pixie things.
Yeah, fortunately it was a pretty short scene,
but it was like, whoa, and
it was pretty stupid. The CG when they did it was not good, but I respected the fact that they did pretty good,
because a lot of the physical effects in the sense of like how the scenes looked, when like it all looked realistic.
That's what I was going to say.
So it was so jarring out of it.
I appreciated the fact that when there was no CG on screen, things were done well.
Right.
So I couldn't.
They like real trebuchets throwing fireballs and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I couldn't rate it too low, but it
was. What did you give it?
2.5.
So you only said it was a 2, basically, without the Hemsworth quotient.
Yeah, my Hemsworth quotient is only 0.5 in this
not a
one.
quotient, it would be like the...
adjuster. It's, the Hemsworth...
The Hemsworth constant or something.
Well, I'm not multiplying it by it. I'm just adding to it. So moving on to structure. How'd you feel about that?
I went low again. I went 1.5.
I said 2, so that's not that much lower than me.
Because I think we've mentioned most of the stuff related to structure.
Yeah.
Other than I mean, like even decisions that like, okay, she's a warrior now. This doesn't really make sense. Like she'd literally been in the tower for
she would have
6
barely
or 8 years.
been able to walk.
Right.
She would have been a raving lunatic. The way that they showed it made it look like she had
gives
no
like a
interaction.
Speech at the end, which the speech wasn't any good either.
The speech
was like
bizarre.
Words made no sense. Like
every individual word I understood, but it was meaningless, utterly meaningless.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
So
and the dwarves being like highwaymen who just like all of a sudden are like, yes, we'll go with you because you said the king was your father. That's all it takes.
Yeah, I felt with the structure on this one that it was kind of a wasted opportunity, because I alluded to the fact that I actually kind of liked the Charlize Theron character.
Yeah.
I thought that they made her reasonably compelling. She had some kind of backstory to where she was supposed to have come from very difficult circumstances.
More to it,
yeah, and she was a more sympathetic character than your average evil, wicked queen.
Right. But then she just went off. They showed her as being went off the rails with the power or something like that. Yeah, but then I
was like, well, what is her goal in all of this? Just take over?
I guess immortality.
Yeah, I guess.
Because originally the way she like gets her powers is like her village is being like raided by bandits, and her mom like casts a spell on her to protect her.
Right.
But it can be undone if someone's like more like with
if someone is more beautiful than her.
More beautiful, because that's the thing. Like if she just let Snow White grow up and do her thing, like nothing would have happened. She was just the only one who could undo it.
Yeah.
The fact of her being more beautiful didn't like automatically undo it.
Right. She should have just kept her locked up,
or just killed her when she was young.
Yeah, because she freaked out when she found out that Snow White's blood could be her undoing.
Right.
So that's when she tries to get her killed, and then she escapes, and all of this happens because of that. She could have just walked in there and killed her herself. But there was I feel like it was a wasted opportunity. They had kind of an interesting idea and then just shit the bed on it.
And I don't know, it was really the whole thing about making the movie like and the Huntsman and making it more about him. Like they had no real reason or idea why they wanted to do that. I think they were just like, I can tell
you the reason why they wanted to do that, because they wanted to set up a damn love triangle at the end.
Yeah, for like a Team Edward, Team Prince, Team Huntsman.
I mean,
like they didn't have a real reason. Was my point.
I would bet money that they were planning on doing a sequel that was going to...
She has to choose between like the
prince...
Prince
That was going to delve into the prince versus the huntsman in who she chooses. And she and the director torpedoed that because
banging.
Yeah, they had an affair and it broke up his marriage.
So we know who she chose, neither.
Yeah, and it broke up her relationship with Robert Pattinson at the time. So when they did the sequel, neither one of them was involved in it. They just focused...
Who? Kristen Stewart or the director?
Right, different director. Didn't have Snow White in it at all. It was just focused on Charlize Theron, her sister Emily Blunt, and Chris Hemsworth, and I think his wife.
Wait, have they already done the sequel?
They did the sequel. I think it came out this year.
Oh, really?
Maybe last year.
So it's not even. It doesn't even have Kristen Stewart in it.
Nope, she's not even in it.
Huh.
They completely...
So it's a prequel?
Basically, I think so.
Because I was like, if Charlize Theron's in it.
I don't know a lot about it, but I'm fairly certain it's a prequel because I think it has Hemsworth's wife.
Which is interesting because Hemsworth was like a nobody in the movie.
Yeah.
He was just like a random hunter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think their original
Seems forced.
The original plan, I think, was to try the love triangle to get the teen girl demographic, which is why they brought in Kristen Stewart, probably trying to piggyback on that Twilight money. And that good Twilight money,
sparkly vampire money.
Yep. It seems like they also weren't sure which direction they wanted to go with this Snow White character at first.
Right.
At first, they show her praying, And I thought they were going to do
like the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, I thought
and then
they
all
were
of a sudden they're in like tree nymphs and
yeah, I thought they were going to do
shit.
a Joan of Arc thing,
right?
And that might have actually been a little more interesting.
And they sort of did at the end too, with the battle and the armor and all that shit.
Right, but then they have her being able to control animals, and they have that weird
she didn't
fantasy
really control
sequence.
them. She was just like at one with them.
It was like influence them. Like they just wanted to help her.
It was like Bambi, like they all came out and were like fluttering around.
Like when she was around the dwarves, they were healing all their aches and pains.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God,
healing.
I feel better. She's the one kind of shit.
Really bizarre stuff that they were trying.
It just came out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And they didn't really reference again for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, like it wasn't a total disaster, but it was odd.
The best part about that was like she's in the woods and it's all like Bambi-like, or the Ides of March or whatever the thing from Fantasia is, with like little cherubs and stuff floating around. This big white stag who doesn't have real antlers. They're like stick antlers. Yeah. And all of a sudden some guy like crossbows it and it just stands there like, and it like stands there for like 30 seconds just like roaring. And I'm like, you're gonna get fucking shot again, bro. Yeah. And eventually it just explodes into butterflies.
Yep. Yeah, like, that come rushing at you at the screen. Yeah. So
that's why, and that the effects there were not good either.
No, everything that was a computer effect was bad.
Right.
Everything that was just real world stuff was fine. So, all right, run through your scores for both of the movies for me.
Totals?
So, what did you give it in acting, visual structure?
For number one?
Yes.
1.5, 1.5, and 1.
And then for Snow White?
2, 1.5, 1.5.
Okay, so my scores were for Mirror Mirror, I said 2 for acting, 3 for visuals, 2 for structure, for a total of 7.
Okay.
And Eric gave it 4, so that's a total of 11. And then for Snow White and the Huntsman, I said 3 for acting, 2.5 for visuals, and 2 for structure.
7.5.
That's a 7.5 plus Eric's 5 is 12.5. So actually, this is one of the closer ones, besides the tie that we had in episode 1.
Yeah.
This is one of the closer matchups. I was surprised that yours was as close also.
With each other?
Yeah, I thought you were going to give Mirror Mirror like a 0 on everything.
Honestly, well, I mean, I gave pretty close. 1.5, 1.
True.
And like I admitted, though, like a lot of that was related to the fact that I was just miserable watching this PG movie. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I had to watch Aristocats one time for a college class.
I made him.
Well, I didn't actually have to.
He let me choose the movie.
It was the Politics of Education. I had to watch 3 Disney movies and comment on what type of messages or whatever are being promoted. And she was like, picked that movie's like 65 minutes long. And I had to take like 3 breaks. Yeah. I was like, oh no, they're just going to sing again.
I can't
do it. I got to go do some laundry or some chores.
Yeah, so that's why I felt bad once I realized what it was. So Snow White and the Huntsman is,
but even like
technically the better movie.
This is what I think
by much. Though.
Not by much. Yeah, I mean it's definitely more eminently watchable for me.
Yes.
But I'm surprised that I only gave it a point more, really, because because I was so much less miserable. But I think it was just because I was coming right off that movie too.
Yeah.
But I've seen that was one of the reasons why I scored the first one low, is because I don't think it did a good job of even doing that type of movie.
It didn't.
Because like I've seen snippets of like in the background, like the Lego Movie or something. Like those are the type of movies that kids love and parents can still watch because they throw in enough like weird dialogue and stuff that kids don't get, but it's still funny for the parents.
Right.
I mean, I would never watch that movie, like sit down and watch that movie unless it was for something like this, but that's how you're supposed to do those type of movies.
Well, this one...
And that's why I guess it made like $1 bajillion and this one disappeared.
For Mirror Mirror, it was kind of a movie that was for nobody. It was supposed to be for kids, and I think with some of the Queen's humor, they were trying to keep the moms interested, but it failed on both counts. But neither was funny. Yeah, they took a director who didn't have any experience. It kind of hit this
uncanny valley between like kids movie and an adult movie.
Right.
Where it's just awkward for both groups.
I think if they'd had Jane Kowalski as the Queen,
playing almost her exact character from Kimmy Schmidt.
I think she could have said some stuff that was funny for the moms, and the kids, it would go over their heads if they had made it. But they'd get the
gist of it. Yeah, that this woman's like bitchy.
Maybe if they had been better about the slapstick, or like just better about the physical comedy. Yeah.
Because they still were try to ride this like creepy visuals line.
They shouldn't have had any creepy visuals. Yeah. He was just the wrong one. So I feel bad. And then Snow White and the Huntsman was just an average.
It was just an ill thought out venture. It seems like they had this. They almost like they tried to stretch a gimmick into a whole movie. Yeah. Like instead of Snow White and the Prince, why don't we make the Huntsman the main character? We got Chris Hemsworth on board. Great. All we need is a script. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it did. You can tell that the studio executives were just like, hey, what fairy tales haven't been done in a while? Let's take one, let's make it dark, let's get
modern a little bit.
Let's get some actors that the kids care about. That Kristen Stewart is so hot right now.
And yeah, well, exactly. She's so hot right now. We'll make it more like girl powerish a little bit.
All the Twilight kids are gonna come see it. Yeah. Oh well, they were. I didn't find them as painful as you did, but they were
slightly less anyway.
Yeah, they were not.
What do you give them? 7 and 8?
7 and 7.5.
Oh, you were closer. So only the Hemsworth quotient was the only difference.
Yeah.
For you.
You know what? 30 minutes into Mirror Mirror, I was pretty unhappy. Right. I was just like, holy shit. But like I said, about an hour in, I was a little bit more on board. I went, okay, you know, Armie Hammer's making me laugh a little bit. I'll look at him without his shirt on. And then I hate to say it, but the Bollywood dance scene kind of got me. I was like, this is what the whole movie should have been.
Why were you keeping this from happening? Yeah, like, this is what they wanted to do.
It was a shock when
they
it first happened. They
even had, like, musical sets, like, looking places where, like, here's a town center, and it's all the buildings are facing you, and there's, like, a stage kind of square, and, like, they're going to start dancing and singing now, right?
With the Bollywood dance number, I saw what they were going for, and I appreciated the movie a little bit better. And then
that was the closing credits, basically.
I know. And then once I thought about how good Jane Kowalski would have been in that role, I kind of made a movie in my head while it was going on. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this Tony's Mirror Mirror is much, much better. Whereas Snow White and the Huntsman was pretty bland.
It was just a mediocre movie, yeah.
It really was. So anyway, I think it was actually turned out to be a little bit better of a matchup than I was thinking halfway through Mirror Mirror.
Yeah, because we thought like Snow White's the Huntsman would blow the other one out of the water.
Right. I think choosing movies in the future, I'm going to have to pay a little bit more attention to the ratings. No more PG movies. We'll stick to PG-13 and R so that Eric's brain doesn't come oozing out of his ears. So that he doesn't,
turn on a Paul Verhoeven movie right in the middle of it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll take a break to go watch RoboCop.
Right.
Well, I think that is going to do it for us this week. So if you want to get in touch with us, our email address is faintpraisepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, for giving a new podcast a chance, and we will catch you next week.
See ya.